The church was silent until she walked in, dressed in black, eyes calm, carrying a silver bucket of ice water. No one understood, not until she reached the open casket and dumped the water straight on her husband's face. The Williams home sat on a quiet street in an upscale neighborhood, a stunning contemporary design that Maren had created herself. On a crisp autumn morning, Maren stood in her home office, sorting through the mail that had piled up during her week-long business trip to Chicago. Bills, bills, more bills, she muttered, separating envelopes into neat stacks. Then she paused, holding an official, looking envelope from their bank. She opened it, expecting a routine statement, but what she saw made her blood run cold. Their joint savings account, where they'd been depositing money for their future dream home in Colorado, showed a balance of just $742.16. That couldn't be right. There should have been over $2.3 million in that account. Maren quickly logged into their online banking, her hands trembling slightly as she typed. The statement wasn't wrong. Transaction after transaction showed withdrawals, some small, some large, over the past 18 months, all made by Derek. What the hell? She checked their other accounts. Their other account was nearly empty too. Only her personal account, which Derek couldn't access, remained untouched. Maren sat back in her chair, trying to make sense of it. Where had $2.3 million gone? She tried calling him again. Straight to voicemail. Derek, it's me. I just found the bank statement. Call me back immediately. Maren paced the room, her mind racing. Something was very wrong. She opened her laptop and began searching through their digital records. Tax returns, investment accounts, credit card statements, looking for any clue. It took hours, but slowly, a pattern emerged. Credit card statements showed charges at casinos in neighboring states, cash withdrawals near those same casinos, hotel rooms she knew nothing about, restaurants where they'd never eaten together. Derek had a gambling problem, a serious one. The front door opened and closed. Maren, you home, honey? Derek's voice called out from the entryway, sounding casual and upbeat, as if nothing was wrong. Maren took a deep breath, closed the laptop, and went to face her husband. Derek Williams stood in their kitchen, setting down a bag of groceries. At 42, he still had the athletic build of the college baseball player he'd once been. His dark hair was just beginning to gray at the temples, which Maren had always thought made him look distinguished. His smile, the one that had first charmed her at a friend's barbecue 9 years ago, spread across his face when he saw her. There's my award-winning architect. How was Chicago? I missed you. He moved to embrace her, but Maren stepped back. Where's our money, Derek? His smile faltered slightly. What do you mean? The $2.3 million in our savings account. It's gone. All of it. Derek's expression shifted through several emotions. There must be some mistake, he said, turning to unpack the groceries. I'll call the bank tomorrow. I already checked online. The money's gone, Derek. Withdrawals. All made by you. He kept his back to her, arranging vegetables in the refrigerator with unusual care. It's a temporary thing, Maren. I had to make some investments. Investments? Maren laughed bitterly. Is that what they call blackjack tables now? Derek froze, then slowly closed the refrigerator and turned to face her. The charming smile was gone. You've been going through my things. I've been looking at our financial records after discovering our life savings has disappeared. Maren corrected, her voice rising. How long have you been gambling, Derek? Derek ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture she'd seen countless times. It's not what you think. I had some losses, yes, but I'm about to turn it around. I've got a system now, and there's a big game next weekend that— Stop. Maren held up her hand. Just stop. Do you hear yourself? This isn't about a system or a big game. This is about addiction. You need help. I don't need help. Derek snapped. What I need is for my wife to support me instead of attacking me the minute I walk through the door. Support you? Maren's voice rose. You stole our life savings. Money we worked for together. Money for our future. I didn't steal anything, Derek said defensively. My name is on that account too. Maren stared at him, suddenly seeing a stranger where her husband had stood. Who are you? Because the Derek I married would never do this. Something cold flickered in Derek's eyes. Maybe you never really knew me. Those words hung in the air between them, a terrible truth neither had acknowledged until now. I think you should stay somewhere else tonight, Maren said quietly. I need space to think. This is my house too, Derek protested. Yes, a house that I designed, that I put the down payment on, and that I've been making the mortgage payments on for the past year, apparently, Maren said. Please, Derek, just go. Fine, but you're overreacting. We'll sort this out. After he left, Maren sat alone in their beautiful, empty house, feeling like her entire life had been built on quicksand. 8 years of marriage, and she'd had no idea her husband was capable of this level of deception. The following morning, Marin woke after a restless night to find several missed calls from a number she didn't recognize. When she called back, a woman answered. Pacific Northwest Insurance. This is Stephanie speaking. Marin frowned. Someone called me from this number. Oh yes, Ms. Williams. We've been trying to reach you regarding the life insurance policy. What life insurance policy? There was a pause. The policy your husband took out last month. There was a question about the beneficiary information. He listed you, of course, but there was an issue with the secondary beneficiary designation. Marin's mind was spinning. I wasn't aware my husband had taken out a new policy. Oh, Stephanie sounded uncomfortable. It's quite a substantial policy. $5 million. Mr. Williams said it was because of his new position at work involving more travel. Standard procedure, really? $5 million. New policy, last month, just as their finances had deteriorated beyond hiding. I see, Marin said carefully. And who was listed as the secondary beneficiary? That's actually the issue. He listed his mother, Linda Williams, but there was a problem with her social security number. We just need the correct information. Marin barely remembered the rest of the conversation. After hanging up, she sat motionless, connecting dots. Derek had gambled away their savings. He'd taken out a massive life insurance policy. What was he planning? She tried calling him again. Still no answer. Marin spent the day in a daze, trying to make sense of everything. By evening, she'd made a decision. Tomorrow, she would confront Derek, insist on addiction counseling, and they would need to meet with financial advisors to sort out the mess he'd created. If he refused, she would have to consider divorce. As she was preparing for bed, her phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Williams? A grave male voice asked. This is Officer Daniels with the Coast Guard. I'm afraid there's been an accident. Your husband's boat was found drifting empty about 3 miles offshore. There was no sign of Mr. Williams. We've initiated search and rescue procedures, but with the water temperature and darkness falling, I need to prepare you. The chances of survival are very slim. Marin listened, her mind oddly clear despite the shock. When did this happen? A passing vessel reported the empty boat around 5:30 p.m. We've been searching for about 4 hours now. As Officer Daniels continued explaining the search efforts, Marin walked to her home office and opened her laptop. The browser was still open to their bank accounts from yesterday. She refreshed the page. A new transaction appeared, time-stamped 4:45 p.m. today. Transfer to offshore account, 742.16. The remaining balance of their savings account. Their account now showed exactly zero. Marin cut Officer Daniels off mid-sentence. When did you say the boat was found? Around 5:30 p.m., ma'am. But your husband could have fallen overboard sometime before that. Or exactly 45 minutes before that, immediately after emptying their bank account. I understand, Marin said. Please keep me updated on the search. She hung up and sat in perfect stillness for several minutes. Then she opened a fresh browser window and typed, How to fake your own death by drowning. The results were illuminating. Nobody was found. Remote location. Boat left adrift. Transferring assets beforehand. Derek wasn't dead. He was running. A new text message appeared on her phone, from another unknown number. I'm so sorry about Derek. I'm here if you need anything. Stephanie from Pacific Northwest Insurance. Marin stared at the message, a final piece clicking into place. Stephanie from the insurance company. The same company where Derek worked. The overly personal message from a supposed customer service representative. Derek wasn't just running. He was running with someone. And they'd planned to take the $5 million insurance payout with them. In that moment, as shock gave way to understanding, something shifted in Marin Williams. The grief that should have overwhelmed her was replaced by a cold, clear focus. She didn't know how yet, but Derek Williams was about to learn that he'd made a terrible mistake. The boat Derek had supposedly fallen from was a 28-foot cabin cruiser they'd purchased 3 years ago. Marin had always been nervous on the water, so it had essentially become Derek's toy, something he took out with friends or business associates. Now she realized it had been the perfect setup. Derek knew she rarely joined him on boating trips. He knew she couldn't confidently navigate the vessel herself. If he disappeared from it, Marin walked through their house with new eyes, looking for any additional clues Derek might have left behind. In his home office, she found credit card statements he'd hidden from her, showing purchases of men's clothing she'd never seen him wear, a prepaid phone receipt, and most damning of all, tucked behind the spare tire in the garage, a waterproof bag containing a passport in Derek's name with a slightly altered birth date. He'd been planning this for months. Marin was still processing this revelation when Officer Daniels called again around midnight. Mrs. Williams, I'm afraid we've had to suspend the active search for tonight. Water conditions have deteriorated, and we've found no sign of your husband. We'll resume at first light, but I must prepare you for the possibility that this may become a recovery operation rather than a rescue. I understand. Marin said, "Thank you for everything you're doing. A victim advocate will be contacting you in the morning. Is there someone who can stay with you tonight? Family or a friend?" "Yes," Marin lied. "My sister is on her way." After hanging up, Marin made a decision. If Derek wanted to play dead, she would let him think he'd succeeded. For now, she went to her computer and did something that would have been unthinkable just 24 hours earlier. She didn't delete Derek's browser history showing searches for how to fake drowning deaths and countries with no extradition. Instead, she took screenshots and saved them to a hidden folder. Then she went to bed. She slept soundly for the first time in weeks. The next morning, Marin began her performance as the devastated widow. She called her office, her voice breaking appropriately as she explained about Derek's accident. She accepted the Coast Guard's offer of a victim advocate, a kind woman named Rita who arrived with resources about grief counseling and the process of declaring someone legally dead. It's very rare for bodies to be recovered after open water accidents like this, Rita explained gently. After 48 hours, the search will likely transition to recovery mode, but even then, the odds of finding remains are slim. Marin nodded, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. What happens next? Legally, I mean. Well, without a body, your husband can't be officially declared dead for some time. The waiting period varies by state, but it's typically 7 years. Marin looked appropriately shocked. 7 years? What am I supposed to do for 7 years? There are provisions for these situations. You can petition the court for a declaration of death in absentia after a reasonable search period, especially given the circumstances of his disappearance. Marin nodded, filing away this information. And his life insurance? Rita looked sympathetic. That can be complicated without a death certificate. Insurance companies often require substantial proof of death or wait until the legal declaration. However, in clear cases like boating accidents where extensive searches have been conducted, they sometimes make exceptions. Of course they do, Marin thought. That's exactly what Derek and Stephanie were counting on. Marin's phone buzzed with another text from Stephanie. "The Coast Guard called our office about Derek. I'm devastated for you. Please let me know when you're ready to discuss the policy. Take all the time you need." She showed the message to Rita. "That's his insurance agent?" Rita asked, frowning slightly. "Apparently," Marin said. "I've never met her. Derek handled all the insurance matters." "It's a bit familiar for a professional relationship," Rita observed. "But everyone grieves differently. Perhaps she knew him well through work." After Rita left, promising to check in the following day, Marin received the call she'd been expecting from the Coast Guard. The search was being called off. There was no sign of Derek Williams' conditions had been perfect for a thorough search, and the area had been completely covered. The official conclusion: Derek Williams had fallen overboard and drowned. His body was likely carried out to sea by strong currents. Marin thanked them for their efforts, her voice appropriately hollow. Then she made 3 phone calls. Marin stood at the edge of the memorial garden, watching as people filed into the tasteful pavilion where Derek's life would be celebrated. No casket, of course. No body had been found. Just an oversized portrait of Derek in his best suit, smiling that winning smile, surrounded by white roses and navy blue ribbons, his favorite color. It had been 2 weeks since Derek's accident. 2 weeks of Marin playing the part of the grieving widow while secretly building her case. The security system was in place. Tiny cameras hidden throughout their home. Tess Morgan, the PI, was making progress tracking the money, and Marin's divorce attorney had helped her secure their remaining assets against further pillaging. Linda Williams, Derek's mother, approached Marin with a solemn expression. She had flown in from Arizona 3 days ago, staying in Marin's guest room and accepting condolences with regal grace. "You look lovely, dear," Linda said, adjusting the collar of Marin's black dress. "Derek would be proud of how you're handling this." "Thank you for helping with the arrangements, Linda. I couldn't have done this without you." The older woman patted Marin's hand. "He was my only child." The PI had discovered some interesting information about Linda Williams, specifically that she had recently put her modest Arizona home on the market and had been researching properties in Belize, a country with no extradition treaty with the United States. "We should go in," Linda said, guiding Marin toward the pavilion. "People will expect us to greet them." The memorial service was everything Derek would have wanted, heartfelt but not overly emotional, with just the right balance of solemnity and celebration of life. Derek's boss spoke about his dedication and charm. College friends shared stories of his athletic prowess and leadership. Neighbors praised his community involvement. Marin listened to these tributes to a man who apparently never existed, at least not in the form they described. When it was Marin's turn to speak, she approached the podium. The crowd fell silent, ready for the widow's heartbreaking tribute. "Derek and I would have celebrated our 9th anniversary next month," she began, her voice trembling slightly. We had so many plans, so many dreams for our future together. Maren paused, scanning the crowd. And there, at the very back of the pavilion, partially hidden behind a column, she spotted a figure in a dark jacket and sunglasses, head tilted down. The build, the posture, even with the attempt at disguise, she would know her husband anywhere. Maren didn't miss a beat. Derek lived life to the fullest. He always said, "You can't take it with you when you go." I think about that a lot now. My husband was full of surprises right up until the end. Maren continued, making direct eye contact with the sunglasses, wearing observer. She finished her eulogy with a quote about the unpredictability of life and returned to her seat beside Linda. "Beautiful words, dear," Linda whispered. Maren noticed that during her speech, Linda had been typing on her phone beneath her prayer book. After the service, guests gathered for a reception in the garden. Maren accepted condolences with appropriate grief, all while keeping track of the figure in sunglasses, who was now moving carefully around the perimeter of the gathering. At one point, she excused herself and walked in that direction, only to see the figure quickly retreat around a corner. Stephanie arrived fashionably late to the reception, dressed in a conservative black dress that couldn't quite hide her model-worthy figure. At about 30, she was nearly a decade younger than Maren, with long blonde hair. "Maren," she said, embracing her. "What a beautiful service." Derek would have been so touched. Maren returned the embrace, noticing how Stephanie's eyes darted around the garden. "Thank you for coming, Stephanie, and for all your support these past 2 weeks. Of course, anything you need, day or night. We're processing the claim as quickly as possible." "That's very thoughtful," Maren said. "Actually, I was hoping we could meet tomorrow to go over the policy details." "Of course. Why don't I come to your house? That would be easier for you." "Perfect," Maren agreed. "Around noon? I'll be there." Stephanie's phone buzzed. "Excuse me, I should take this." As Stephanie stepped away to answer her call, Maren noticed how she angled her body away, speaking in hushed tones. A moment later, Maren's own phone buzzed with a text from Tess Morgan, the PI. "Sunglasses man left in black Audi. Got a partial plate. Following now." Maren slipped her phone back into her purse. Things were proceeding exactly as she'd hoped. Later that evening, after the last of the guests had left and Linda had retired to the guest room claiming emotional exhaustion, Maren sat alone in her home office, reviewing the day's events. She opened her laptop to check the feed from the hidden cameras. Nothing unusual yet. Her phone buzzed with another text from Tess. "Lost him in traffic but confirmed ID from distance. 99% sure it was your husband. We'll send photos tomorrow." Maren wasn't surprised. She had felt Derek's eyes on her throughout the memorial service. What kind of man attended his own funeral? A soft knock on her office door startled her. Linda stood there in a silk robe, looking concerned. "Still working, dear? You should rest." Maren closed her laptop. "Just tying up loose ends. Derek handled so much of our finances. I'm still trying to make sense of everything." Linda entered the room, perching on the edge of a chair. "Anything I can help with?" "That's very kind, but I think I've got it under control," Maren said. Then, deciding to test a theory, she added, "Actually, there is one strange thing. Derek apparently transferred a large sum to an offshore account just before his accident. I can't figure out how to access it." Linda's expression remained neutral, but Maren noticed her hands tighten slightly on the arms of the chair. "How strange. Perhaps it was a business investment he hadn't told you about yet." "Perhaps. Men can be mysterious about financial matters," Linda said. "Richard was the same way, always moving money around for tax purposes or investment opportunities. I learned not to question it." "I suppose," Maren said. "Anyway, I should probably get some rest too." "Stephanie is coming tomorrow to discuss Derek's life insurance policy." "The insurance agent? That's thoughtful of her to come to you." "She's been very supportive," Maren said. "The policy is quite substantial. $5 million. $5 million, Linda repeated, a hint of something, calculation, envy, in her voice. Well, Derek always did think ahead. After Linda returned to the guest room, Maren checked her security feeds one more time. The exterior camera caught Linda standing by the window of the guest room, phone to her ear, speaking intently. Unfortunately, the system didn't record audio from that distance. Maren settled into bed, mind racing with possibilities. If her suspicions were correct, Linda wasn't just a grieving mother, she was part of Derek's scheme, which meant Maren now had 3 opponents: Derek, Stephanie, and Linda. Thankfully, none of them knew that Maren was playing too, and she had no intention of losing. The next morning, Maren prepared for Stephanie's visit. She chose an outfit that made her look slightly frail, an oversized sweater that emphasized her recent weight loss, minimal makeup to highlight the dark circles under her eyes. The grieving widow, struggling to cope, Linda announced over breakfast that she needed to run errands and would be gone for several hours. "Don't wait for lunch for me, dear. Take your time. I'm sure Stephanie and I have a lot to discuss." After Linda left, Maren activated the recording function on all the hidden cameras and prepared a tray with coffee and the homemade cookies Derek had always loved. The perfect grieving widow, maintaining her husband's favorites even in his absence. Stephanie arrived precisely at noon, dressed in a professional but stylish pantsuit, carrying a leather portfolio embossed with the Pacific Northwest Insurance logo. "Maren, how are you holding up?" she asked. "Taking it day by day." Maren replied, "Some moments are harder than others." "Of course," Stephanie nodded. "The first few weeks are always the most difficult, but you're doing remarkably well. Having support helps. Derek's mother is staying with me, and friends have been so kind. And how is Linda? Such a lovely woman." Derek spoke of her often. "She's coping as best she can, losing her only child. I can't imagine." Stephanie nodded sympathetically, then opened her portfolio. "I know this is difficult, but we should discuss the policy. Given the circumstances of Derek's passing, there will be some additional steps beyond a normal claim." "I assumed as much," Maren said. "No body, no death certificate yet." "Exactly. However, Pacific Northwest Insurance has protocols for these situations. The Coast Guard's report, the extensive search, the presumption of death, these all work in your favor." Maren frowned slightly. "In my favor?" Stephanie backtracked quickly. "Poor choice of words. I simply meant that the evidence supports the claim, which will make the process smoother." "I see," Maren said. "And how long does this process typically take?" "In cases like this, usually 3 to 6 months. We'll need the official Coast Guard reports, statements from witnesses who saw Derek leave on the boat that day, proof that an adequate search was conducted, and eventually, a court order declaring presumption of death. 6 months seems like a long time to wait when I'm struggling financially." Maren said, "With our savings tied up in investments, I can't access the mortgage payment due." Stephanie reached out to pat her hand. "Don't worry. In hardship cases, we can sometimes provide an advance on the policy to help with immediate expenses." "How generous. That would be so helpful," Maren said gratefully. "Derek handled all our finances. I'm still trying to make sense of everything he left behind." Stephanie's phone buzzed. "Sorry about that. Where were we?" "The advance on the policy," Maren reminded her. As Stephanie outlined the requirements, Maren noticed her checking her phone repeatedly, clearly distracted by whatever message she'd received. Finally, she excused herself to use the bathroom. The moment Stephanie was out of sight, Maren activated the app on her phone that connected to the hidden cameras. The bathroom feed showed Stephanie not using the facilities but instead making a call, speaking in hushed but urgent tones. Thanks to the high-quality microphones, the words came through clearly. "She suspects nothing. Just stick to the plan. Yes, I told her about the advance. No, Linda isn't here. I can't talk long. I'm supposed to be in the bathroom. Just be patient. 6 months isn't that long to wait for $5 million. Maren quickly closed the app as she heard the bathroom door open. Stephanie returned, her professional composure restored. "Now, about that advance," she continued. "I'll need you to sign these preliminary claim forms, just standard procedures acknowledging that Derek is presumed deceased and that you're the primary beneficiary." Maren accepted the forms, scanning them carefully. "It says here that if Derek is found alive within 7 years, I would have to repay the full amount plus penalties." Stephanie nodded. "Standard language for presumption of death cases, but given the circumstances, the chances of that are virtually zero." "Virtually zero," Maren repeated, signing the forms. "That's somewhat comforting, I suppose." After Stephanie left, Maren went straight to her office and downloaded the bathroom recording. She saved it alongside her growing file of evidence, then called Tess Morgan. "I need you to follow Stephanie from Pacific Northwest Insurance," she instructed. 3 weeks after Derek's disappearance, Maren received an unexpected visitor. She was in her home office, reviewing the latest report from Tess Morgan, who had tracked Stephanie to a remote cabin in the mountains. Linda had finally returned to Arizona 2 days earlier, claiming she needed to deal with her house sale, promising to return soon for emotional support. Maren was relieved to have the house to herself again. Playing the grieving widow was exhausting. Maren opened the front door to find a tall woman with short silver hair and shrewd eyes standing on her porch. She wore a no-nonsense pantsuit and carried a slim briefcase. "Mrs. Williams? I'm Agent Collins with Pacific Northwest Insurance, Special Investigations Unit. I was hoping we could talk about your husband's policy." Maren felt a jolt of alarm mixed with anticipation. This wasn't part of the script Stephanie had outlined. "Of course," she said, stepping aside to let Agent Collins enter. "I wasn't expecting anyone from the insurance company today. These visits are typically unannounced," Collins said, her tone professional but not unkind. Standard procedure for high-value claims with unusual circumstances. Marin led her to the living room, the same space where she'd met with Stephanie. Collins remained standing, surveying the room, while Marin quickly texted Tess Morgan, "Insurance investigator here. Special Investigations Unit, not part of their plan." Collins had seated herself and opened her briefcase. "Mrs. Williams, I want to be transparent with you. Whenever we have a policy this large that was taken out shortly before a presumed death, especially one without a body, we conduct a thorough investigation." "I understand," Marin said. "Is there a problem with the claim?" "Not necessarily a problem, but there are certain red flags that require further scrutiny. Your husband doubled his life insurance just 3 months ago." "I wasn't aware of that," Marin said truthfully. "And you weren't aware of the policy increase at all?" "No," Marin shook her head. "I only learned about the policy after Derek's accident when Stephanie contacted me." Collins made a note. "And your husband's financial situation at the time of his disappearance?" Marin hesitated, deciding how much to reveal. "This investigator could be either an obstacle or an ally. To be honest, I recently discovered that our savings had been significantly depleted," she admitted. Collins's eyebrows rose slightly. "Do you know what the money was used for?" "I believe he had a gambling problem," Marin said. "I found evidence of casino visits, cash withdrawals near those locations." "I see." Collins made more notes. "And these financial issues, did you report them to the Coast Guard during their investigation?" "No," Marin admitted. "I was in shock, and to be honest, I didn't connect the two events immediately. It was only after I had time to process everything that I began to wonder if your husband's disappearance might not have been an accident." Marin looked down at her hands. "Is that a terrible thing to think about your own husband?" "Not at all," Collins assured her. Marin decided to take a calculated risk. "Agent Collins, can I speak candidly?" "Please do." "I've begun to suspect that Derek might have staged his disappearance," Marin said, her voice trembling slightly. "The timing, the missing money, a new insurance policy I knew nothing about. Have you shared these suspicions with anyone else? The Coast Guard? The police?" "No," Marin shook her head. "I have no proof, and to be honest, I was afraid." "Afraid of what, Mrs. Williams?" "Afraid that if I voiced these suspicions and was wrong, I'd be dishonoring Derek's memory. And if I was right, afraid of what it would mean for my future, for his family. His mother has been staying with me. She's devastated by his death." Collins nodded. "These are very difficult circumstances. I appreciate your candor." Marin took another risk. "There's something else. Something I haven't told anyone." Collins leaned forward. "Go on." "The day Derek disappeared, there was a transfer from our joint account, the last of our savings, about $742. It happened less than an hour before his boat was found drifting empty." Collins' expression sharpened. "Do you have documentation of this transfer?" "Yes." Marin stood. She retrieved her laptop and showed Collins the online banking records, pointing out the final transfer timestamp shortly before Derek's disappearance. "This is very helpful information, Mrs. Williams," Collins said. "May I ask why you didn't share this with Ms. Hughes?" Marin bit her lip. "To be honest, I wasn't sure who I could trust." Collins made another note. "Your instincts are good, Mrs. Williams. In my experience, trust should be earned, not freely given." Marin felt a surge of hope. Agent Collins might prove to be the ally she needed. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now, I continue my investigation," Collins said, closing her notepad. "I'll be looking into your husband's financial records, his recent activities, his relationships." "Standard procedure." "His relationships?" Marin repeated. "Yes." Collins nodded. "Was your marriage stable, Mrs. Williams?" "I had no suspicions until after his disappearance," she said carefully. "But now, looking back, there were signs I missed. Late nights at work, business trips I wasn't invited to join, new clothes I never saw him wear. Classic patterns," Collins agreed. "Would it surprise you to learn that Ms. Hughes requested to be assigned specifically to your husband's policy when it was initiated 3 months ago?" Marin's surprise was genuine. "She requested him specifically?" "Yes," Collins confirmed. "Unusual but not prohibited. Insurance agents often prefer to work with clients they feel comfortable with, or clients they're planning to defraud." Marin thought. "I'd like to help your investigation in any way I can," Marin offered. Collins nodded, handing Marin a business card. "I appreciate that, Mrs. Williams. My direct line is on the card. If you think of anything else, no matter how small, please call me immediately." As Agent Collins was leaving, she paused at the door. "One more thing. Ms. Hughes mentioned you've applied for a hardship advance on the policy." "Yes," Marin confirmed. "With our savings gone, I'm concerned about meeting expenses." "I understand," Collins said. "That application will be on hold pending my investigation. I hope that doesn't create too much hardship." "I'll manage," Marin assured her after Collins left. Marin immediately called Tess Morgan and filled her in on the visit. "This is actually good news," Tess said. "If the insurance company is investigating, they'll have resources and authority we don't." "Agreed," Marin said. "What's the latest on Stephanie and the cabin?" "She visits every Tuesday and Saturday evening, stays overnight. The man never leaves the property, but my telephoto lens caught clear images of him on the deck. It's definitely your husband. Can you get closer? Maybe plant some listening devices? Risky, but possible. The property is pretty isolated. What's your goal here, Marin?" Marin considered the question. "I want justice. Derek stole our savings, betrayed our marriage, and planned to disappear with $5 million that would have come out of the insurance company's pocket. He doesn't get to win this game." "Well, he's obviously getting nervous," Tess reported. "After watching your visitor today, I'm assuming the woman in the pantsuit was the investigator?" I followed her back to her office. 2 hours later, your husband and Stephanie had a heated discussion on the cabin deck. Lots of gesturing, clearly arguing. Then they went inside and packed up. They left about an hour ago. Marin felt a chill. "Left? Where did they go?" "I followed them to a motel about 40 miles from here. They checked in under the names David and Sarah Miller, paid cash. They're changing the plan," Marin realized. "What do you think they'll do next?" Tess asked. "He'll come back from the dead," she said with sudden certainty. "He'll realize the insurance investigation might uncover their plan, so he'll create a new story, one where he's the victim, not the villain." "How do you figure?" "Because that's who Derek is," Marin explained. "He can't stand to be the bad guy, even when he's clearly in the wrong. He'll come up with a story that makes him sympathetic, something that explains his disappearance while absolving him of blame." "Like what?" Tess asked. "Amnesia," Marin said. "He'll claim he fell overboard, was rescued by someone, fisherman maybe, and couldn't remember who he was. He's been struggling to regain his memory all this time, and now has finally remembered enough to come home." "That's actually plausible," Tess admitted, "and would explain the missing money without admitting to fraud." "Exactly," Marin said. "So what's our move?" Marin smiled grimly. "We prepare for a miracle. My husband is about to return from the dead, and I need to be ready to welcome him home, exactly as he expects me to." That evening, Marin sat in her home office, preparing for Derek's inevitable return. She reviewed all the evidence she had gathered. It was substantial, but would it be enough to prove insurance fraud? To prove that Derek had willingly abandoned his life, emptied their accounts, and attempted to fake his death for financial gain? Marin needed more. She needed Derek to incriminate himself. Her phone rang. Agent Collins. "Mrs. Williams, I wanted to update you on some developments in my investigation. We've uncovered several concerning transactions in your husband's financial records. Large cash withdrawals, as you mentioned, but also purchases of camping equipment, a prepaid phone, and a bus ticket to Mexico dated 3 days after his disappearance." "Mexico?" Marin feigned surprise. "Yes, the ticket was never used, but the purchase was made using your husband's credit card 2 weeks before he disappeared." "That seems definitive," Marin said. "It's certainly suspicious," Collins agreed. "I've also interviewed several of your husband's colleagues. 2 of them mentioned that Derek seemed particularly close to one of our agents, Stephanie Hughes. They were often seen having lunch together, and one colleague reported seeing them leaving a hotel together during a company conference in Portland last year." "Are you suggesting my husband was having an affair with Miss Hughes?" Collins said carefully. "The evidence suggests a relationship beyond professional boundaries." "I see," Marin said quietly. "Agent Collins, I appreciate your thoroughness. We're getting closer to the truth, Mrs. Williams. I've also flagged your husband's passport in the system. If he attempts to use it at any border crossing or airport, we'll be notified immediately." 4 days after Agent Collins' visit, Marin's prediction came true. It was just after 9 p.m. She was in the kitchen making tea when the doorbell rang. Through the security camera feed on her phone, Derek had returned from the dead. Marin took a deep breath, slipped her phone into her pocket, and went to open the door. The man who stood before her was a carefully constructed version of her husband, thin, exhausted, with haunted eyes and dirty clothes that still somehow managed to look artfully distressed. "Marin, it's me. I'm home." "Derek?" she whispered. "Is it really you? How is this possible?" He stumbled forward, catching her in his arms, the devoted husband, returning to his beloved wife. "I fell overboard," he explained. "The current was so strong. I thought I was going to die. But some fishermen found me, pulled me into their boat. I couldn't remember anything, who I was, where I came from. They took me to a small clinic up the coast." Marin guided him to the sofa. "You've been alive all this time? With amnesia?" Derek nodded. "The doctors called it dissociative amnesia caused by trauma. I've been living in a shelter trying to piece together my identity. Then yesterday, something clicked. I remembered your name, our address. I've been hitchhiking home ever since. Why didn't the clinic contact the police? Marin asked. Your disappearance was all over the local news. It was a small place, very remote. The fishermen who found me were undocumented. They were afraid to go to authorities. And without ID, without knowing my name. Oh, Derek, Marin breathed. I can't believe you're really here. I thought I'd lost you forever. I found my way back to you. That's all that matters now. You must be exhausted, she said. Are you hungry? Thirsty? Should we go to the hospital? Just tired, Derek said. So tired. Maybe a shower and some sleep? We can go to the hospital tomorrow. Of course, Marin agreed, helping him to his feet. Let me take care of you. In the bedroom, Derek looked around as if reacquainting himself with a forgotten space. It's all coming back to me now, he said softly. Pieces of my life, our life together. Take your time, Marin soothed. Your memory will return fully soon. The important thing is that you're home. Derek smiled gratefully. You always were the strong one. While Derek showered, Marin quickly texted Agent Collins. Derek has returned. Claims amnesia. Then she texted Tess. He's here. Plan proceeding. Monitor Stephanie's movements. When Derek emerged from the bathroom, he looked more like himself. Clean-shaven, hair still wet, wearing the pajamas Marin had left out for him. For a moment, she almost forgot what he had done, who he really was. Then she remembered the empty bank accounts, the secret girlfriend, the elaborate plan to fake his death for insurance money. Better? She asked, patting the bed beside her. Much, he sighed, sliding under the covers. I still can't believe I'm home. Me too, Marin said, keeping her distance but maintaining her loving facade. I have so many questions, but they can wait until morning. You need rest. Just hold me, Derek requested, reaching for her. I've missed you so much. Marin steeled herself and moved into his embrace, fighting the revulsion she felt at his touch. Marin waited until Derek was deeply asleep, then carefully slipped out of bed. She went to her home office and reviewed the security camera footage of his arrival, studying his performance with a critical eye. Then she checked the bathroom camera feed from when he was showering. Derek had examined the bathroom carefully, checking behind the mirror, under the sink, even feeling along the shower curtain rod, looking for surveillance devices. He hadn't found the tiny camera Marin had hidden in the decorative air vent. More importantly, while in the shower, he had made a call on a waterproof phone he kept in a hidden pocket of his dirty clothes. The audio was faint beneath the shower noise, but Marin could make out pieces of the conversation. I'm in. She bought it completely. Tears and everything. No, don't come here yet. Give it a few days. Claim the advance first. Yes, I'll make the amnesia official tomorrow. Doctor's note. Police report. Insurance will have to pay. Just stick to the plan. Marin saved the footage. Then she returned to bed, lying as far from Derek as possible. Morning arrived with pale autumn sunlight filtering through the bedroom curtains. Marin had barely slept, her mind racing with plans and contingencies. Beside her, Derek slept deeply. Marin slipped out of bed and went downstairs to prepare breakfast, activating all the hidden cameras as she went. Today would be crucial for gathering evidence. When Derek finally came downstairs, he moved with the careful gait of someone still recovering from trauma. Good morning, she said, placing a cup of coffee in front of him. How did you sleep? Better than I have in weeks, Derek said, accepting the coffee gratefully. Marin had prepared his coffee exactly as he liked it, with one significant addition. The sleeping pills she had crushed into the brew were mild enough not to be immediately noticeable but strong enough to create the symptoms she needed. I called Dr. Patterson. Marin said, he's amazed by your return and wants to see you immediately. I also called the police. They need to update their missing persons report. Derek frowned slightly. Can't that wait a day or two? I'm still adjusting. Derek, you've been presumed dead for nearly a month, Marin said with gentle firmness. The Coast Guard conducted an extensive search. There's a police report. We need to officially confirm you're alive. Derek sipped his coffee. You're right, of course. It's just overwhelming. I understand, Marin said. But the sooner we get the official part done, the sooner we can focus on your recovery. As they ate breakfast, Marin asked careful questions about his experience, noting each inconsistency. The coffee was already taking effect. Derek was becoming slightly drowsy. You mentioned fishermen rescued you, Marin prompted. Do you remember anything about them? Names? What did their boat look like? Derek shook his head. It's all so foggy, I think. I think the boat was blue, and one of the men might have been named Miguel or Manuel. And the clinic? Where exactly was it located? Somewhere north of here. Near the Canadian border, I think. Small place, just a doctor and a nurse. Derek rubbed his temples. Marin nodded sympathetically. Don't push yourself. Your memory will return in time. As they were preparing to leave for the doctor's appointment, Derek suddenly swayed on his feet, grabbing the counter for support. Derek? Marin rushed to his side. What's wrong? I feel strange, he mumbled, his words slightly slurred. Dizzy. Maybe I stood up too fast. Here, sit down. Marin guided him to a chair. Let me get you some water. Derek's condition deteriorated rapidly. His eyes couldn't seem to focus, and his movements became increasingly uncoordinated. Marin watched with calculated concern, waiting for the perfect moment. When Derek slumped forward, nearly falling out of the chair, Marin made her move. She called 911. Please, I need an ambulance, she said, her voice trembling with convincing fear. It's my husband. He returned home last night after being missing for weeks. He claims he had amnesia, but now he's collapsed. He's barely conscious. Please hurry. While waiting for the ambulance, Marin knelt beside Derek, who was drifting in and out of awareness. Stay with me, Derek, she urged, stroking his face for the benefit of the security cameras. Help is coming. Derek mumbled something incoherent, his eyes struggling to focus on her face. When the paramedics arrived, Marin gave them a carefully crafted version of events. Derek had disappeared in a boating accident weeks ago, had just returned last night claiming amnesia, and had suddenly collapsed this morning. He hasn't been evaluated by any medical professionals yet, she explained as they loaded Derek onto a stretcher. He refused to go to the hospital last night, saying he just needed rest. We'll take good care of him, ma'am, one paramedic assured her. Which hospital would you prefer? Mercy General, Marin said without hesitation. She had chosen the hospital carefully. It was where her friend Sarah worked as a psychiatrist, specializing in trauma and memory disorders. Marin followed the ambulance in her car, making 2 important calls on the way. First to Sarah, giving her a brief but essential overview of the situation. Then to Agent Collins. Derek has been taken to Mercy General, she reported. He collapsed this morning, possibly a reaction to the trauma he's experienced, according to the paramedics. I thought you should know. I appreciate the update, Collins said. I'll meet you there. At the hospital, Marin played the role of concerned wife perfectly. She paced the waiting room, asked appropriate questions about Derek's condition, and provided his medical history to the attending physician. Dr. Sarah Hughes, no relation to Stephanie Hughes, ironically, came to speak with Marin privately. Based on what you've told me about his claimed amnesia, disappearance, and now this collapse, we're going to keep him for observation and evaluation. Sarah explained for the benefit of anyone listening. We need to rule out neurological issues, possible head injury, or psychological trauma. How long will that take? Marin asked. At least 72 hours, Sarah said. Possibly longer. Marin nodded. Whatever he needs. I just want him to be okay. What no one else in the hospital knew was that Sarah was not just Marin's friend, she was also her ally in exposing Derek's fraud. As a psychiatrist specializing in trauma, she had the authority to order a psychological hold if she believed a patient might be a danger to themselves or others. And based on Marin's evidence of Derek's elaborate deception, Sarah had sufficient cause to believe he represented a significant risk. When Agent Collins arrived, Marin met with her in a quiet corner of the waiting room. The doctors are keeping him for at least 72 hours of observation and evaluation, Marin explained. They're concerned about his mental state and the inconsistencies in his story. Collins nodded. This gives us time to investigate his claim of amnesia. I'll need access to his doctors with your permission as his wife. Of course, Marin agreed. Anything that helps uncover the truth. What exactly happened before he collapsed? Collins asked. We were having breakfast, getting ready to see our family doctor, Marin explained. He seemed fine, maybe a little tired. Then suddenly he got dizzy, his speech slurred, and he nearly fell out of his chair. Had he taken any medication? Did he eat or drink anything unusual? Just coffee and toast, Marin said. Collins made a note. I'll need to interview him once the doctors clear him to speak with me. In the meantime, I've assigned an agent to monitor the hospital. You think someone might try to reach him here? Marin asked, feigning surprise. In fraud cases involving multiple parties, it's common for co-conspirators to attempt contact, Collins explained. Marin nodded thoughtfully. Like Stephanie Hughes? Or, she hesitated, possibly his mother? Collins's expression sharpened. Do you have reason to believe Linda Williams might be involved? Marin said. She's been acting strangely since Derek disappeared, and she left rather suddenly to return to Arizona, right before Derek showed up. I'll look into it, Collins promised. The house felt different with Derek gone, cleaner somehow, as if his presence had been a contamination that was now temporarily removed. Marin moved through the rooms with purpose, searching methodically for any evidence Derek might have hidden before his accident or brought back with him upon his miraculous return. She started in his home office, examining every drawer, every book, every potential hiding place. Derek had always been methodical, preferring paper records to digital ones for his most sensitive information. Behind the false back of his desk drawer, a hiding place Marin had discovered years ago when looking for a stapler. She found a small leather notebook. Inside were handwritten notes detailing what appeared to be a timeline for his disappearance. Locations, dates, amounts of money to be transferred. Most damning was a list labeled "Story Elements for Return," bullet points describing exactly the amnesia story Derek had told her, right down to the fictional fisherman named Miguel. Marin photographed every page before returning the notebook to its hiding place. In their bedroom, she discovered more evidence. Inside the lining of Derek's favorite leather jacket, the one he hadn't been wearing when he returned, was a small key. It didn't match any lock in their house, but Marin had a strong suspicion about what it might open. A text from Tess Morgan confirmed her theory. Found a storage unit rental agreement in Stephanie's trash. Unit 342 at Secure Space Storage on Riverside Drive. Paid in cash 3 months ago. The timing aligned perfectly with when Derek had doubled his life insurance policy. Marin replied immediately, "I may have the key." While waiting for Tess's response, Marin continued her search. In the guest room where Linda had stayed, she found a crumpled piece of paper wedged between the bed and the wall, apparently overlooked during Linda's hasty departure. It was a brochure for beachfront properties in Belize, with one circled in red pen, and the note, "Perfect for us?" written in the margin. Marin was photographing this evidence when her phone rang. Agent Collins. "Mrs. Williams, we've made a significant discovery," Collins said. "Your husband's fingerprints match those found in a cabin rented under the name David Miller. The cabin was paid for in cash for 3 months, starting 2 weeks before your husband's disappearance." "David Miller?" Marin repeated, feigning shock. "Yes. Does that name mean anything to you?" "No," Marin lied, knowing full well it was the alias Tess had reported Derek using at the motel. "Where is this cabin?" "About 70 miles north in a remote wooded area," Collins explained. "We obtained a warrant to search it based on the suspicious timing of the rental. Inside, we found men's clothing, provisions, and a laptop containing research on living off the grid. So he was hiding out there after his accident." Marin asked. "It appears so," Collins confirmed, "and he wasn't alone. We found women's clothing as well, along with 2 distinct sets of fingerprints. Your husband's and another person's we're still trying to identify." "Stephanie Hughes," Marin suggested quietly. "We're checking that possibility," Collins said. "I've requested Ms. Hughes's fingerprints from our HR department under the guise of updating security clearances." "What does this mean for Derek?" "It means his amnesia story is almost certainly fabricated," Collins said. "No one with amnesia rents a cabin under a false name. We're building a case for insurance fraud." "I understand," Marin said. "Will you arrest him at the hospital?" "Not yet. We want to see who contacts him, who might be working with him." After hanging up, Marin received another text from Tess. "Key works. You won't believe what's inside. Sending photos now." The images that appeared on Marin's phone were astonishing. The storage unit contained suitcases packed with clothing, boxes of household items, a laptop, and most importantly, a file box containing what appeared to be multiple sets of identification documents, passports, driver's licenses, credit cards, all with Derek's photo but different names. "There's more," Tess texted. "Found jewelry that looks expensive, not your style based on what I've seen you wear. Guess it belongs to another woman." Stephanie's, Marin thought. She recognized a distinctive sapphire pendant that Stephanie had worn to Derek's memorial service, apparently her favorite piece. "Also found a burner phone," Tess continued. "Managed to access it. Text between D and S discussing plan. Explicit mentions of insurance money, new identities, plus a third person referred to as LLR, Linda. Derek's mother wasn't just aware of the plan, she was an active participant. "Get everything back exactly as you found it," Marin instructed. With each new piece of evidence, the case against Derek, Stephanie, and Linda grew stronger. But Marin wasn't satisfied with simply exposing their fraud. She wanted Derek to face the consequences of his betrayal in the most public, most humiliating way possible. She began formulating the next phase of her plan, one that would require perfect timing and a flair for the dramatic that matched Derek's own. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Derek was not having a good day. According to Sarah, he had woken from his sedation angry and confused, demanding to be released. When told he was being held for psychological evaluation, he had become belligerent, insisting there was nothing wrong with him. He claimed his collapse must have been due to exhaustion from his ordeal, Sarah reported by phone. When I pressed him for details about his amnesia experience, he became defensive and changed several elements of his story. "Did he try to contact anyone?" Marin asked. "He asked for his phone, which we haven't provided, and he requested that we call his mother to let her know he's alive. We told him you would handle family notifications." "Perfect," Marin said. "Keep him there as long as legally possible. The 72-hour hold is just the beginning." Sarah assured her, based on his inconsistent statements and apparent delusional thinking, insisting on an amnesia story that evidence contradicts. I can recommend an extended evaluation period if necessary. 2 days into Derek's hospital stay, Maren received an unexpected visitor at home. Stephanie Hughes appeared on her doorstep, looking appropriately concerned in a modest black dress, still playing the role of the supportive insurance agent. "Maren, I just heard Derek has been found alive. It's a miracle. How is he?" Maren invited her in, secretly activating the recording function on all hidden cameras. "He's in the hospital. He collapsed shortly after returning home. The doctors are keeping him for observation and psychological evaluation." "How terrible," Stephanie said. "After everything he's been through, now this. Do they know what caused his collapse?" "They're still running tests," Maren said vaguely. "They're concerned about his mental state. His amnesia story seems inconsistent." A flicker of alarm crossed Stephanie's face before she controlled it. "Inconsistent? In what way?" "Oh, small details. The doctors say that's normal with trauma-induced memory loss. The brain fills in gaps with confabulations, false memories that seem real to the patient." Stephanie relaxed slightly. "That makes sense." "Yes," Maren agreed. "It's almost unbelievable. One day I'm a widow, the next my husband returns from the dead. About that, obviously, the insurance claim will need to be withdrawn now that Derek has been found alive." "Of course," Maren nodded. "I brought the forms." Stephanie removed several documents from her handbag. "And I should mention, the advance you applied for was still being processed, so fortunately there's nothing to repay." "I understand. I'm just grateful to have Derek back." "Is Derek expected home soon?" Stephanie asked casually. "The doctors aren't sure," Maren said. "They're concerned about his mental state." "What hospital is he in? I should send flowers from the company." Maren smiled thinly. "Mercy General, but he's not allowed visitors yet." "Of course." Stephanie nodded. "Well, please give him my best when you see him." After Stephanie left, Maren reviewed the security footage. As she suspected, Stephanie had used a moment when Maren went to the kitchen for water to quickly search through papers on the coffee table and take photos of several documents with her phone. Maren immediately called Agent Collins. "Stephanie Hughes just left my house. She was taking photos of documents." "Interesting," Collins said. "We just received confirmation that her fingerprints match those found in the cabin with your husband. And we've been monitoring her phone. She made a call immediately after leaving your house to a burner phone we haven't been able to trace." "Linda Williams," Maren suggested. "I'm convinced she's involved as well." "We're looking into that connection," Collins confirmed. "In the meantime, your husband has made a remarkable recovery at the hospital." "Too remarkable, according to Dr. Hughes. His symptoms have disappeared completely, and he's now demanding to be released." "What will happen when he is released?" Maren asked. "We don't have enough evidence yet to arrest him for insurance fraud," Collins admitted. "We can prove he was living in that cabin during his supposed amnesia period, but not that he deliberately staged his disappearance to claim the insurance money. What if he tries to disappear again? We have surveillance on him and on Ms. Hughes." Maren considered this. "What if I could get him to confess? To admit the whole scheme? That would certainly strengthen our case," Collins said carefully. "But I can't advise you to put yourself at risk, Mrs. Williams." "I understand," Maren said, "but I think I know exactly how to make him reveal the truth." After hanging up, Maren received a text from Sarah. "Derek's claiming chest pains now. Says it might be cardiac-related trauma from his near drowning. We're running tests, but I think he's faking to get transferred out of psych hold." She texted back, "Let him think it's working. Make it seem like you believe him." The following morning, Maren received the news she had been expecting. Derek had apparently suffered a mild heart attack during the night and was being transferred to the cardiac unit for treatment and observation. Sarah's message was clear. "He's faking, but we're going along with it. Monitoring equipment shows normal cardiac function." This was Derek's next move in their chess game, a second death that would allow him to escape the psychiatric hold and eventually the hospital altogether. Maren needed to stay one step ahead. She called Agent Collins immediately. "Derek's faking a heart attack to get transferred within the hospital. I believe he's planning to escape." "We're aware," Collins assured her. "We have agents stationed at all hospital exits and are monitoring his room." "I have a better idea," Maren said. "Let him think he's succeeded. Let him escape and see where he goes or who comes to help him." Collins considered this. A controlled release could yield valuable intelligence, but it puts our case at risk if he manages to truly disappear. "He won't," Maren said confidently. "He'll come back here, to our house. He needs to maintain his amnesia and heart condition story to avoid suspicion. Plus, he doesn't know that we know about the storage unit or the cabin. He thinks his backup plan is still secure." "You sound very certain, Mrs. Williams." "I know my husband, Agent Collins. His ego won't allow him to run without trying to salvage his reputation first. After some discussion, Collins agreed to Marin's plan. The surveillance would be maintained, but subtly, allowing Derek to believe he had successfully escaped detection if he attempted to leave the hospital. What no one told Derek was that Marin had installed additional hidden cameras throughout their home while he was in the hospital. Every room, every potential hiding place was now under surveillance. If Derek returned, his every move would be recorded. That night, Sarah texted Marin. He's made his move. Disconnected monitors during shift change. Left hospital wearing scrubs he stole from laundry. Agents tracking at a distance. Marin prepared herself. If her assessment of Derek was correct, he would return home, not immediately, but within the next 24 hours. In the meantime, she received another update from Tess Morgan about the storage unit. New development. Someone entered the unit today using a key. Woman, late 60s, gray hair. Took something from a small box, left quickly. Got photos. Marin examined the images Tess sent. It was Linda Williams, Derek's mother, removing what appeared to be cash from a lockbox in the storage unit. The third conspirator confirmed. Marin texted back. Send these to Agent Collins immediately. The pieces were falling into place. Linda had likely returned from Arizona to help Derek with his new plan, whatever that might be. Stephanie was monitoring the situation from her position at the insurance company. And Derek was now free from the hospital, no doubt planning his next move. Marin went to bed that night with all security systems activated, certain that the final confrontation was approaching. She had gathered the evidence, set the stage, and prepared herself mentally. Now she just needed Derek to play his part. She didn't have to wait long. At 3:17 a.m., the silent alarm on her phone vibrated, alerting her that someone had entered the house using a key. The security camera showed Derek slipping in through the back door, still wearing the stolen hospital scrubs, moving quietly through the kitchen. Marin remained in bed, pretending to sleep, watching Derek's movements on her phone. He went directly to his office, retrieved something from the false drawer back, the notebook Marin had discovered earlier, and then moved to their bedroom. She quickly set her phone aside and feigned sleep as Derek entered. He stood watching her for a moment, then moved to his closet, selecting clean clothes. After changing, he approached the bed. "Marin," he whispered, gently shaking her shoulder. She stirred, blinking up at him with carefully crafted confusion. "Derek? What? How are you here?" "I had to leave," he said urgently. "The doctors there didn't understand what was happening to me. My heart, Marin. I think the trauma from the accident damaged it." Marin sat up, the perfect picture of a concerned wife. "Derek, you need medical attention. If your heart—" "Not there," he interrupted. "I don't trust them. Dr. Martinez, my old college roommate, remember? He's agreed to see me privately." Dr. Martinez, another name from Derek's timeline notebook. "Another conspirator? You shouldn't have left the hospital," Marin protested. "What if something happens? What if your heart—" "I'll be fine," Derek assured her. "I just need rest and proper care." Marin allowed herself to be persuaded, presenting just enough resistance to seem concerned but not suspicious. "What can I do?" she asked, taking his hand. "Just be here," Derek said. "Believe in me. I know this all seems crazy, but I'm trying to get better, to be the husband you deserve." "I believe in you," she lied. "Whatever you need, I'm here." Derek smiled, kissing her forehead. "Try to get some sleep. We'll figure everything out in the morning." As Derek settled into bed beside her, Marin lay awake, updating Agent Collins via text about this new development. The agent's response was immediate. "Keep him there if possible. Building case against Martinez now. Need 24 more hours." For the next 2 days, Marin played along with Derek's increasingly elaborate fiction. According to his news story, Dr. Martinez had diagnosed him with a rare form of stress-induced cardiomyopathy caused by his near-drowning experience. He needed rest, minimal stress, and specialized medication that Martinez had prescribed. In reality, Derek spent his days making furtive phone calls when he thought Marin couldn't hear, sneaking food at night when he was supposedly too weak to eat, and even conducting whispered video calls with Stephanie from the bathroom. On the morning of the third day, Derek enacted the next phase of his plan. Marin found him collapsed on the bathroom floor, apparently unconscious. Playing her role perfectly, Marin called 911, reporting that her husband, who had recently returned after being presumed dead in a boating accident, had collapsed and wasn't breathing. The paramedics arrived quickly, but by then, Derek had apparently died. No pulse, no respiration. They performed CPR and used a defibrillator, but nothing brought him back. With appropriate solemnity, they pronounced him dead at the scene. Marin sobbed convincingly as they covered Derek's face with a sheet. She called Dr. Martinez as Derek had instructed her to do, in case of emergency, and within an hour, the doctor arrived to sign the death certificate without performing an autopsy. citing Derek's known heart condition as the cause of death. What Derek didn't know was that Marin had replaced the prescription pills he thought he was taking, actually harmless sugar pills, with a powerful sedative the night before. Not enough to cause real harm, but enough to make him appear dead to a cursory examination. With Dr. Martinez's cooperation, he barely examined the body before signing the certificate. Derek was pronounced officially dead. Marin arranged for the body to be taken to Green Meadows Funeral Home, as Derek had specified in the emergency instructions he had given her. What Derek didn't know was that the funeral director, Mr. Holloway, was a client of Marin's architectural firm. "Everything is arranged as you requested, Mrs. Williams," Holloway assured her when they met privately. The special sealed casket, the extended preservation techniques, and of course the discreet monitoring system. "And no one else knows?" Marin confirmed. "Only my most trusted assistant who will help prepare the body," Holloway assured her. "Your husband will appear deceased to everyone at the funeral. The special breathing apparatus hidden in the casket design will keep him comfortable, and the sedative you provided will keep him still until the moment of revelation." Marin nodded, satisfied with the arrangements. "The funeral needs to be in 3 days. Can you manage that?" "Accelerated timeline, but yes, we can accommodate," Holloway agreed. "Open casket viewing as you specified." "Absolutely," Marin confirmed. With the funeral arrangements in place, Marin began contacting friends, family, and colleagues, everyone who had attended Derek's first memorial service, plus some strategic additions. Agent Collins would be there, along with several undercover officers. Tess Morgan would attend as Marin's cousin. Most importantly, Marin made personal calls to Stephanie Hughes and Linda Williams, informing them of Derek's tragic second death. "The doctors said it was his heart," she told Linda. "The trauma from the accident, the stress of the amnesia. It was too much for his system." "My poor boy," Linda sobbed. "First to lose him, then to have him return only to lose him again. It's too cruel." "I know," Marin said softly. "He spoke of you often in his final days." "I'm booking a flight right now," Linda promised. "I'll be there tomorrow." Stephanie's reaction was more controlled. "This is devastating news, Marin, just when you had him back. I can't imagine your pain." "Thank you, Stephanie," Marin said. "The funeral is Thursday at 2 p.m., Green Meadows Funeral Home. I know it would mean a lot to Derek if you could attend. He always spoke highly of his colleagues in the Pacific Northwest." "Of course I'll be there," Stephanie assured her. "Is there anything I can do to help with the arrangements?" "Actually, yes," Marin said. Derek had mentioned that if anything happened to him, he wanted to be buried with a particular item, a silver pocket watch that belonged to his grandfather. I can't seem to find it among his things. He said he might have shown it to you once. Does that ring any bells? The question was a trap, and Stephanie walked right into it. "Oh, the silver watch with the engraving inside the cover? Yes, I remember him showing me that." Marin smiled to herself. Derek had never owned a silver pocket watch, and certainly not one from a grandfather who had died before Derek was born. Stephanie had just revealed her intimacy with Derek's possessions, knowledge an insurance agent would have no reason to have. After completing the calls, Marin met with Agent Collins to finalize the details of their plan. "We have enough evidence for arrest now," Collins informed her. "Dr. Martinez's involvement sealed it. He's agreed to cooperate in exchange for leniency. But you're waiting for the funeral." Marin confirmed. Collins nodded. "Your plan offers the opportunity to catch all 3 conspirators together, with irrefutable evidence of their fraud. And legally sound?" Marin pressed. "We've consulted with the district attorney. As long as we're simply observing a situation you've created, not entrapping or encouraging illegal activity, the evidence will be admissible. You're not a law enforcement officer, so different rules apply to your actions." Marin nodded, satisfied. "Then we proceed as planned." The day of the funeral arrived with perfect dramatic timing. Overcast skies, occasional rumbles of thunder in the distance, nature providing the appropriate backdrop for the somber occasion. Marin dressed carefully in a black dress, elegant but understated, appropriate for a woman who had lost her husband twice in the span of a month. Linda had arrived the day before, staying at a hotel this time rather than at Marin's house, claiming it held too many memories now. Green Meadows Funeral Home was transformed for the occasion. Floral arrangements in navy blue and white, Derek's favorite colors, adorned the chapel. The sealed casket, specially designed with hidden air vents and monitoring equipment, sat at the front, open to display. Marin had specified that the funeral would be recorded for family members who couldn't attend, providing perfect cover for the multiple cameras positioned throughout the chapel to capture the coming revelation from every angle. Guests began to arrive at 1:30 p.m. Derek's colleagues from the insurance company, neighbors, friends from his college days. Linda sat in the front row, appropriately devastated in an expensive black suit, occasionally dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. Stephanie arrived looking suitably solemn, though Maren noticed her eyes darting nervously around the room, perhaps searching for any sign that this was a trap. At precisely 2 p.m., the service began. The funeral director offered a gentle welcome, speaking of life's unpredictability and the cruel twist of fate that had returned Derek briefly only to take him again. A college friend delivered a brief eulogy, speaking of Derek's charm and vitality. A cousin performed a moving rendition of Amazing Grace. Throughout it all, Maren sat in the front row, the perfect grieving widow, her eyes occasionally drifting to the open casket where Derek lay, apparently lifeless, but actually in a heavily sedated state that would wear off precisely when needed. Finally, it was Maren's turn to speak. She approached the podium, the weight of 2 deaths seemingly heavy on her shoulders. "When Derek disappeared at sea, I thought I had lost him forever," she began. "When he returned, it seemed like a miracle, a second chance at the life we had built together. And now, to lose him again." The audience watched with sympathy, unaware that they were about to witness something unprecedented. Derek always said he wanted to be remembered for his transparency, his honesty. He believed in facing truth directly, no matter how difficult. Maren stepped away from the podium and moved toward the casket. "Before we say our final goodbyes, I want to honor Derek in a way that I believe he would appreciate. A tradition from his mother's side of the family that he once mentioned to me." Linda shifted uncomfortably in her seat, clearly confused. There was no such tradition. From beneath the podium, Maren retrieved a silver bucket filled with ice water. "Derek always said he wanted to be refreshed one last time before his final rest, a symbolic cleansing of the spirit as it transitions to whatever comes next." Murmurs of confusion rippled through the audience. This was not a familiar ritual to anyone present. Linda half rose from her seat, alarm crossing her face. "Maren, I don't recall any such," she began, but Maren was already at the casket. "Goodbye, my love," Maren said clearly, loud enough for everyone to hear. "May this final gesture refresh your journey." And with that, she poured the entire bucket of ice water directly onto Derek's face. The effect was instantaneous and electrifying. Derek bolted upright in the casket, gasping and sputtering, his eyes wide with shock and confusion as freezing water cascaded down his face and chest. "What the hell, Maren?" he shouted, wiping water from his eyes. The audience erupted in chaos. People screamed, jumped to their feet, some backing away in terror, others frozen in disbelief. Phones were raised, recording the miraculous resurrection. In the third row, Stephanie stared in horror, her carefully maintained facade crumbling completely. Maren remained perfectly calm, standing beside the casket with the empty bucket. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, "I present my very much alive husband, Derek Williams." Derek looked around wildly, taking in the funeral setting, the shocked faces, the cameras recording everything. Comprehension dawned in his eyes. He had been caught, exposed in the most public, most humiliating way possible. "Maren, what have you done?" he hissed, trying to climb out of the casket but finding himself weak from the sedatives. "I've simply revealed the truth, Derek," Maren said calmly. Agent Collins stepped forward from where she had been seated at the back of the chapel. "Derek Williams, you're under arrest for insurance fraud, faking your own death, and conspiracy to commit theft." As Collins approached with handcuffs, Derek looked desperately around the room, his eyes finding Stephanie, then Linda. "This is a misunderstanding," he protested. "I can explain everything." "I'm sure you can," Maren said, addressing the stunned audience rather than Derek. "Just like you explained your amnesia after your boating accident. Just like you explained your heart condition. You've always been good at explanations, Derek." From her purse, Maren removed a remote control and pressed a button. The large screen at the front of the chapel, intended for displaying photos of the deceased during the service, flickered to life. Instead of memorial images, it showed a series of videos. Derek sneaking around the house at night while supposedly bedridden. Derek making calls to Stephanie on a hidden phone. Derek and Stephanie together at the remote cabin. Linda removing cash from the storage unit. "You see, while you were playing dead, I was gathering evidence," Maren explained. Evidence of an elaborate fraud involving not just Derek, but his girlfriend Stephanie Hughes from Pacific Northwest Insurance, his mother Linda Williams, and even his college friend Dr. Martinez, who falsified his death certificate. Derek's face contorted with rage and panic. "You bitch! You set me up!" "No, Derek," Maren corrected calmly. "You set yourself up." At that moment, additional police officers entered the chapel. One approached Stephanie, who had been slowly edging toward the door. Another went to Linda, who sat frozen in shock. "Stephanie Hughes, Linda Williams," Agent Collins announced, "you're both under arrest as co-conspirators in this fraud." As the Miranda rights were read and handcuffs applied, The audience remained in stunned silence, struggling to process the unprecedented scene unfolding before them. Derek made one desperate attempt to salvage the situation. "She drugged me," he shouted, pointing at Marin. "That's how she did this. She's the criminal here." Marin smiled serenely. "Actually, Derek, I simply gave you the medication prescribed by Dr. Martinez, the same doctor who has provided a full confession about your scheme. The sedative that made you appear dead? That was your idea, not mine." As Derek was helped from the casket and handcuffed, still dripping with ice water, Marin addressed the astonished funeral guests. "I apologize for the unorthodox nature of today's service. As you can see, this was not a funeral, but rather the culmination of an insurance fraud investigation. Thank you all for your unintentional assistance in bringing these criminals to justice." The chapel erupted in excited conversation as Derek, Stephanie, and Linda were led away by police officers. Phones continued recording, ensuring that this extraordinary event would soon be viral content across social media. The newspaper headline said it all. "Architect outsmarts husband's death hoax with ice water and hidden cameras." 6 months had passed since the dramatic funeral revelation that had made national headlines and turned Marin Williams into something of a folk hero. The video of Derek bolting upright in his casket after being doused with ice water had gone viral, spawning countless memes, late-night comedy sketches, and even a Saturday Night Live parody. But for Marin, the aftermath had been about rebuilding, not relishing her husband's public humiliation. She sat in her newly renovated home office, reviewing the final court documents that had arrived that morning. Derek had been sentenced to 15 years for insurance fraud, faking his own death, theft, and conspiracy. His mother, Linda, received 5 years for her role in the scheme. Stephanie Hughes got 7 years, with the possibility of parole after 3. Dr. Martinez lost his medical license and received a suspended sentence in exchange for his testimony. The investigation had uncovered even more than Marin had known. Derek's gambling problem was real, but it had been only part of the story. He and Stephanie had been involved for nearly 3 years. They had been planning their escape, using the insurance money and Marin's stolen savings for over a year. Linda's role had been larger than expected too. She had acted as their financial manager, setting up offshore accounts and managing the transfer of funds. The Belize property brochure Marin had found wasn't just aspirational. Linda had already put a deposit on the beachfront home where the 3 of them planned to live after faking Derek's death. Most surprising was the discovery that this wasn't Derek's first attempted fraud. Agent Collins had uncovered evidence of 2 previous insurance scams involving fake injuries at retail stores, resulting in substantial settlements. Derek Williams had been a con man for years. Marin had simply never seen that side of him until it was turned against her. A knock at her office door interrupted her thoughts. Tess Morgan stood there, now not just Marin's private investigator but her friend. "Ready for lunch?" Tess asked. "Collins is already waiting at the restaurant." "Absolutely. Let me grab my bag." They drove to an upscale bistro in the renovated downtown district, a building Marin's firm had actually designed 3 years earlier. "The woman of the hour," Diane said as Marin sat down. "Have you seen the news? About Pacific Northwest Insurance?" Marin asked. "Yes, I got the official letter this morning. $1 million in addition to keeping your savings," Tess mused, studying the menu. "Not bad for 6 months' work." "It was never about the money," Marin reminded her. "Of course not," Diane agreed. "But it doesn't hurt, especially considering what you're doing with it." What Marin was doing with the settlement money, along with her recovered savings, was creating the Second Chances Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping victims of fraud rebuild their lives. The foundation provided financial counseling, legal assistance, and emotional support to people who had been betrayed by those they trusted. "The foundation opens officially next week," Marin confirmed. "We've already received over 50 applications for assistance." "It's remarkable," Diane said. "Most people in your position would have just taken the money and moved on, started fresh somewhere else." Marin shook her head. Running away doesn't solve anything. Their conversation was interrupted by a woman approaching their table hesitantly. "Excuse me," she said. "Are you Marin Williams?" Marin nodded, offering a friendly smile. "Yes, I am. I'm sorry to bother you during your lunch, but I just wanted to say thank you," the woman continued. "My husband emptied our accounts and disappeared last year. After I saw your story on the news, I contacted the police with my suspicions instead of just accepting that he was gone. They found him living under a false name 2 states away. Your courage gave me the strength to seek the truth." Marin was touched. "I'm so glad you found answers. And justice, I hope." "He's facing charges now," the woman confirmed, "and I'm rebuilding my life." After the woman left, Tess raised her glass. "To unexpected ripple effects. You didn't just catch your own con man, you're helping others catch theirs." I'll drink to that. Diane agreed, raising her glass as well. Marin joined the toast, reflecting on how differently things had turned out from what she had imagined 6 months ago. When she first discovered Derek's betrayal, she had been focused solely on exposing his fraud. She hadn't anticipated becoming an advocate for other fraud victims, or finding a new purpose in helping others navigate similar betrayals. After lunch, Marin returned to her office to finalize preparations for the foundation's opening. Marin's phone rang. The caller ID showed Blake Carson, her attorney. "Marin, good news," Blake said when she answered. "The insurance company has transferred the settlement funds. They're in the foundation's account now." "Perfect timing," Marin replied. "We're opening next week." "There's more," Blake continued. "I received a letter from Derek's attorney today. He wants to schedule a meeting with you." Marin frowned. "What for?" "Apparently, Derek wants to apologize in person. Says he's been doing a lot of thinking in prison." Marin considered this. 6 months ago, she would have dismissed this as yet another manipulation. Now, she wasn't so sure. "Tell him I'll consider it," she finally said. "But not right away. I have a foundation to launch." "Will do," Blake agreed. "And Marin, for what it's worth, I'm proud of how you've handled all this. Not many people would turn such a personal betrayal into something that helps others." After hanging up, Marin walked to the large window overlooking the city. The skyline featured several buildings she had designed over the years, tangible proof of her creative vision and professional success. But the foundation represented something different, something deeper. It was about transformation, about taking the worst experience of her life and reshaping it into something that could help others heal. The doorbell chimed, indicating someone had entered the foundation's front office. Marin turned to find Diane Collins standing in the doorway holding a gift-wrapped package. "Sorry to drop by unannounced," Diane said, "but I wanted to give you this before your official opening." Marin accepted the package, unwrapping it carefully. Inside was a beautiful silver bucket, smaller and more elegant than the one she had used at the funeral, but unmistakably similar. "I thought it could be a sort of mascot for the foundation," Diane explained with a smile. Marin laughed, turning the bucket in her hands. "It's perfect. I'll display it prominently." "There's something else," Diane said, her expression becoming more serious. "I've been offered a position with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division." "That's wonderful," Marin exclaimed. "Though I'll miss working with you locally." "That's just it," Diane continued. "I recommended they establish a satellite office here, focused specifically on relationship-based fraud, cases like yours, where personal betrayal and financial crimes intersect. They've approved it, and I'll be heading the office." "So you're staying," Marin said. "I am, and I was hoping the Second Chances Foundation might consider a formal partnership with our new office." Marin smiled, touched by the recognition of how her personal experience could continue to help others in unexpected ways. "I'd be honored." Later that evening, as Marin stood in the completed foundation space, resource materials on the shelves, comfortable consultation rooms ready for clients, the silver bucket displayed prominently in a glass case in the lobby, she felt a sense of completion that had been missing for months. The foundation's motto, engraved on a plaque beside the bucket, read, "Truth, like water, finds its way through any barrier." Her phone buzzed with a text from Tess. "Just saw the news. Derek's appeal was denied. All sentences upheld." Marin replied with a simple thumbs-up emoji. Derek had thought he could bury her with his lies. Instead, she had buried him with the truth, and in doing so, she had unearthed the best version of herself.